The struggle begins. The distant planet of Ceros was a harsh, unforgiving world. Towering mountains stretched into the sky, and dense forests covered most of the land. The air was thin, and the temperature could drop to freezing levels within minutes. Despite all these challenges, the inhabitants of Ceros managed to survive, though on the surface, it appeared that they were struggling. The humans, part of an advanced empire, had come to Ceros with high hopes. They believed they would quickly take control of the planet. Their mission was clear: explore, conquer, and expand their empire. They had faced similar challenges before, on planets far more dangerous, and emerged victorious each time. But Ceros felt different. There was something unsettling about it. When the humans arrived, they saw the aliens who lived there. They looked fragile, thin, pale-skinned beings with large eyes, almost childlike in appearance. Their clothing was simple, made from crude fabrics that seemed worn from years of use. The humans couldn't help but feel pity for them. These aliens seemed to be struggling, living a life filled with hardship and constant work. At first, the humans offered help. They assumed the aliens would be grateful. They sent food and supplies, hoping to make the colony more comfortable. Yet the aliens didn't seem to care much about the gifts. They accepted the supplies but offered no signs of appreciation, no smiles, no words of thanks. It puzzled the humans. Why weren't they more grateful? These aliens, they thought, were clearly struggling to survive. The humans continued to observe them. The aliens worked tirelessly, digging through the rocky soil to gather resources, building shelters with what little they had, and surviving in what the humans could only describe as primitive conditions. Yet, despite their apparent struggle, there was an air of calm around them. They moved with purpose, their eyes focused, never showing signs of fear or panic. It was as if they had been living this way for generations, accepting their fate with quiet determination. The leader of the human expedition, Captain Elias, stood on a high ridge overlooking the alien settlement. His brow furrowed as he watched the aliens going about their work. There was something strange about it all. They didn't seem weak. They didn't seem frightened. They were controlled, as if they knew something the humans didn't. "Captain," said Lieutenant Sarah, his second in command, "these people, they don't act like survivors. They act like they're waiting for something." Elias turned to her, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "It's like they're biding their time. They're not fighting for their lives the way we expected. It's almost like they're choosing to live like this." Elias stared back at the alien colony, thinking hard. She was right. The aliens didn't seem desperate. They didn't appear to be fighting to survive. They simply existed, their actions methodical and deliberate. What kind of creatures could live in such difficult conditions without appearing to break? As the days passed, the humans' suspicions grew. They began to notice things. Small, subtle things, like the way the aliens never seemed to be in a hurry, yet always finished their work on time. The way they would glance at one another with knowing looks, as if communicating without words. And there was the strange technology they kept hidden, buried beneath the surface of the colony. Elias had seen it during their brief explorations, a kind of energy pulse that seemed to hum under the ground, barely detectable by the human sensors. It was clear that the aliens had far more advanced technology than they were letting on. Elias decided it was time to confront the situation head-on. He gathered his team, and without alerting the aliens, began a covert mission to explore their hidden technology. The humans sneaked into the alien settlement under the cover of darkness, moving carefully through the underbrush and keeping out of sight. They reached the entrance to the underground facility where the strange energy pulses originated. The entrance was well hidden, camouflaged by thick vines and rock formations, but the humans were experienced, trained to find what others couldn't. They made their way inside, the air growing colder as they descended deeper into the hidden chambers. The walls were lined with intricate symbols and patterns, glowing faintly in the dark. "What is this place?" whispered Lieutenant Sarah, her voice filled with awe. Elias didn't answer. He was too busy studying the walls, noticing the familiar patterns of advanced technology mixed with ancient designs. It was clear that the aliens weren't struggling. They were hiding something powerful. As they moved deeper into the facility, the hum of energy grew louder. The humans soon came upon a massive chamber, the size of a football field. In the center was an enormous structure, half buried in the earth, its surface covered in alien markings. It seemed to pulse with life, a living machine that had been dormant for centuries. Elias stood frozen, his mind racing. What have we found? He didn't have the answer, but he knew one thing for sure. The aliens were not weak. They were not struggling. They were waiting. And whatever they were waiting for, the humans were about to find out. A surprising encounter. The deeper the humans ventured into the hidden alien facility, the more they realized just how little they understood about the aliens and their world. The walls of the underground chamber were etched with symbols that seemed to glow faintly, lighting their way as they moved further into the labyrinth. The air felt charged, thick with the energy emanating from the structure at the center of the chamber. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. Captain Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens were watching them. Despite the lack of direct contact, he felt as though the entire colony was aware of their every move. The humans had assumed they were in control, but this hidden place suggested otherwise. These beings weren't just struggling to survive. They were hiding their true power, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. As they approached the large, dormant structure, Elias felt a strange sensation. It was like the ground beneath his feet was vibrating, a low hum that seemed to resonate in his chest. He signaled for his team to stop, his hand held up in a silent command. The group halted, each of them feeling the strange energy pulsing through the air. "Do you feel that?" Lieutenant Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Elias nodded, his eyes scanning the chamber. "Something's here, and it's not just technology. This feels alive." Before anyone could respond, a low sound echoed through the chamber, a distant noise that grew louder with each passing second. The humans tensed, weapons ready, but there was no sign of danger. Instead, they saw movement in the shadows, figures emerging from the darkness, stepping into the faint glow of the symbols on the walls. The aliens. They had found them. These were no ordinary aliens. These beings were not the fragile, weak creatures the humans had seen on the surface. The figures who emerged from the shadows were tall, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their eyes were dark and unblinking, as if they could see through everything, including the humans' very souls. They moved with an unnatural grace, each step deliberate and controlled, like ancient warriors who had mastered their bodies and minds. At the front of the group stood a taller alien, their leader. She walked slowly, purposefully, her presence commanding the room. Captain Elias felt an unexpected shiver run down his spine. There was something about this leader, something almost familiar. "You've found our sanctuary," the leader spoke, her voice smooth, yet carrying an undeniable power. It was the first time the humans had heard an alien speak directly to them. Elias stepped forward, his heart racing. "We didn't mean to intrude. We've been trying to understand your people, your culture." The alien leader's expression remained neutral, but there was a flicker of something, an emotion too fleeting for Elias to read. "You seek to understand us. You think we are weak, struggling to survive. You've seen our struggles, but you have not seen the strength we hide." The words sent a chill through Elias. He had suspected something like this, but hearing it directly from the leader's lips confirmed his fears. The aliens had been hiding their true nature all along. "We thought you were..." Elias trailed off, unsure how to phrase it. "We thought you were barely surviving, that you were struggling." The leader's eyes narrowed slightly. "Struggling? No. We endure. We wait. There is a difference." Elias felt a sense of confusion building inside him. Wait for what? The leader didn't immediately answer. Instead, she raised one slender hand, and the air in the chamber seemed to shift. A wave of energy passed over the humans, and suddenly, the entire facility seemed to come alive. The dormant structure at the center of the chamber hummed with power, its surface glowing as though it were waking from a long slumber. This, the leader said softly, is the power we have kept hidden for centuries. You may have thought us weak, but we are the descendants of a great empire, a civilization that once ruled the stars. We are not struggling. We are waiting for the right moment to return. Elias felt his breath catch in his throat. This was beyond anything they had imagined. The aliens were not just survivors of a harsh world. They were the descendants of an ancient, powerful race. A race capable of incredible feats, capable of reshaping the galaxy itself. The leader's voice was steady, her words carrying the weight of centuries of history. We have chosen to live in peace, to hide our true power. But peace is fragile. It has been centuries since we last revealed our strength. And now the time has come to decide if we will return to the stars, or if we will remain in the shadows. The chamber fell silent as the humans tried to process what they had just heard. The weight of the aliens' words hung in the air. These beings were not weak. They were waiting for something, waiting for the humans to understand the true power they held. Before anyone could speak, the leader turned and began to walk away, the other aliens following silently. You will learn more in time, she said over her shoulder. But be warned, our patience is not infinite, and you may not like what you find. As the humans watched them disappear into the shadows, Elias felt the heavy weight of the revelation settle over him. The aliens were not weak. They were far from it. They had been hiding their power, biding their time, and now the humans had unknowingly entered a dangerous game. The true question now was, would the humans be ready for what came next? The first glimpse of power. The following days were filled with tension as the humans tried to comprehend the encounter with the alien leader and the shocking revelations about their hidden power. Captain Elias and his team couldn't stop thinking about what they'd learned, that the aliens, far from being weak and struggling, were waiting, biding their time for something greater. Despite the warnings they had received, the humans could not shake the feeling that they needed to understand more, to learn the truth about these mysterious beings. Elias was determined to discover what the aliens were truly capable of, even if it meant pushing the boundaries of what they had already been told. The team continued their exploration of the colony, though now with a new perspective. They were no longer just visitors on this planet. They were intruders into a hidden world of power. Every encounter with the aliens felt different now, more intense, more deliberate. They no longer viewed them as fragile or weak, but as beings whose strength was carefully concealed, waiting to be unleashed. One afternoon, as they were moving through the dense alien forests, the humans were once again faced with a surprising sight. A group of aliens was working near a large construction site, building what appeared to be a new shelter for the colony. Their movements were slow and controlled, but there was something unmistakable about the way they worked. Elias couldn't put his finger on it, but he knew they were hiding something big. As the humans moved closer to observe, they were suddenly struck by a sharp, powerful energy pulse. It came out of nowhere, shaking the ground beneath their feet and making the trees around them tremble. The pulse was brief, but it left the humans stunned, their bodies vibrating with the intensity of the energy. The aliens around them didn't seem to react, continuing their work as though nothing had happened. Elias stumbled, his hand reaching for his communicator. "What was that?" he asked, his voice filled with urgency. Lieutenant Sarah, who had been observing the scene through a high-tech lens, lowered her device and looked at him, her eyes wide. That wasn't natural. It was like they were testing something. Captain Elias's heart raced as he tried to make sense of what they had just experienced. He knew the aliens had immense power, but this was something else entirely. They hadn't just unleashed raw energy. They had controlled it, like it was second nature. The pulse had been perfectly timed, calculated, as though they were testing their own strength. Before he could respond, one of the aliens who had been working nearby approached them. It was the same leader who had spoken to them in the underground chamber. She gave them a cold, piercing stare, and for a moment, the humans felt as if she could see straight through them. "You felt that," she said simply, her voice low and measured. "We allowed you to feel it." Elias swallowed hard, his mind racing with questions. What was that? The leader remained silent for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then, with a slight tilt of her head, she replied, "That was a demonstration, a reminder of what we are capable of." The human stood frozen, the gravity of her words sinking in. A demonstration. The aliens weren't just hiding their power. They were showing the humans what they could do, giving them a taste of their strength. Elias tried to steady his breathing, his thoughts spinning. He had seen great displays of power in his time, but nothing like this. The aliens weren't just powerful. They were masters of control. They could manipulate energy at will, shaping it to their desires without any sign of effort. "What do you want from us?" Elias asked, his voice shaking slightly. The leader's eyes narrowed. "We don't need anything from you. We've lived in isolation for centuries, surviving by our own strength. But the time has come for us to decide whether we will reveal ourselves to the galaxy again. And when that moment comes, we won't just be waiting. We will be unstoppable." The leader's words echoed in Elias's mind as she turned and walked away, her figure blending into the shadows once more. The humans were left standing in stunned silence. They had seen power beyond anything they could have imagined, a power so immense it made their own technology seem insignificant. As they made their way back to the base camp, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens were not just waiting. They were preparing. They were readying themselves for something, and the humans had unknowingly walked into a game far more dangerous than they had ever realized. But what were they preparing for? And what would happen when the time came for them to reveal their true strength? The legend of the ancients. The unsettling encounter with the alien leader left the humans with more questions than answers. As the days passed, Captain Elias and his team continued their exploration. But now every move they made felt like a step deeper into a web of mystery. The aliens were no longer just curious creatures. They were something far more ancient, far more powerful. But why had they remained hidden for so long? What had caused them to retreat into this quiet, isolated existence? Elias knew they needed to learn more if they had any hope of understanding the true nature of the alien race. So he made a decision. He would confront the leader again, seeking answers. This time, he wasn't going to ask simple questions. He would demand the truth. One evening, as the sun began to set and cast long shadows over the alien settlement, Elias and Lieutenant Sarah made their way to the underground facility once again. The eerie hum of energy still filled the air, and the chamber seemed even more alive than before. There was a heavy sense of anticipation in the air, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something. They found the alien leader in the same place as before, standing before the dormant structure. She was not alone this time. Several other aliens were gathered around her, all watching with intense, knowing eyes. When they saw Elias and Sarah approaching, they fell silent. Elias stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "We need to understand. Why have you kept your true power hidden? What is the history of your people? We have seen what you can do, but we don't understand why you've been waiting." The leader studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, with a small, almost imperceptible nod, she gestured for Elias and Sarah to come closer. They walked towards her, the air thick with tension. "Very well," she said, her voice cool and composed. "I will tell you what you seek to know. But know this, the truth is not something we share lightly." Elias nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea what the leader was about to reveal, but he knew it would change everything. "The history of our people is long," the leader began, her voice becoming distant, as though she were recalling something from deep within her memory. Long before your kind ever set foot on the stars, we were the rulers of this galaxy. Our ancestors built empires, forged alliances with other species, and held unimaginable power. We were unstoppable. Elias and Sarah exchanged a glance. This was more than they had expected. The aliens weren't just survivors. They were once conquerors. But power comes at a price. The leader continued, her tone growing darker. We were once blinded by our strength, and that blindness led us to war. We waged battles across the galaxy, seeking to expand our empire, to dominate every world we touched. We destroyed entire civilizations, crushed entire species beneath our feet. Elias felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The stories of their power were far more than just myths. They were real. These beings had once controlled everything, and their thirst for domination had led to unimaginable destruction. And then, the leader said, her voice softening, we realized what we had become. The destruction we caused. The lives we shattered. We saw the consequences of our actions. And so, we made a choice. Elias leaned in, captivated. What choice? We chose to retreat, the leader said. We withdrew from the galaxy, leaving behind the empires we had built. We sealed away our power, choosing to live in peace. But we did not forget. We did not forget the price of our strength, nor the responsibilities that came with it. The leader's gaze turned cold as she continued. For centuries, we have lived in isolation, hiding our true nature from the galaxy. We have waited, watched as the universe grew, as new species rose to power. But we are no longer the rulers we once were. Our time has passed. Elias could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him. The alien race had not been defeated. They had chosen to withdraw, to live quietly, away from the turmoil they had caused. But the question remained, why were they revealing themselves now? Why tell us this? Sarah asked, her voice trembling with curiosity. What does it mean for us? The leader's eyes flickered with something Elias couldn't quite identify. It means that the time has come again, she said. The universe is changing. New powers are rising. But we are no longer the empire we once were. We are merely a shadow of our former selves. The choice is no longer ours. The galaxy is calling us back. We must decide whether we will re-enter it, or whether we will remain hidden forever. Elias absorbed her words, realizing that the alien race was not just waiting for the right moment to reveal their power. They were waiting for the universe itself to provide them with a reason. The galaxy was changing, and the aliens had a choice: to return and reclaim their lost empire, or to remain in the shadows, hiding their power forever. But the most chilling thought crossed Elias's mind. What would happen if they chose to return? An unforeseen attack. The weight of the revelation about the alien race's ancient past hung heavily over Captain Elias and his team. They had learned that the aliens were no mere survivors of a harsh world. They were the descendants of an empire that had once ruled the stars, a people who had the power to reshape entire civilizations. Now, after centuries of hiding, the time had come for them to choose their future. Elias couldn't shake the thought that the decision was already being made. He could feel it in the air, thick with the tension of something looming just beyond the horizon. The question was no longer whether the aliens would reveal their strength, but when. For the next few days, the humans tread carefully around the alien colony. The atmosphere had changed. It was no longer one of peaceful observation. There was something simmering just beneath the surface. Elias noticed the aliens' behavior had shifted as well. There were fewer of them working in the fields, fewer of them out in the open. Their eyes seemed to follow the humans more closely, as though they were waiting for the right moment to strike. One morning, the stillness was shattered by a violent tremor that shook the entire colony. The ground beneath the humans' feet rumbled, and the sky above darkened, as though clouds had suddenly appeared from nowhere. Elias felt his heart race as the air itself seemed to thicken, vibrating with an energy he could not comprehend. Then, without warning, The first wave hit. A massive shockwave emanated from the center of the colony, sending trees crashing to the ground and knocking the humans off their feet. Elias's team scrambled to regain their footing, shouting into their comms for updates, but the signals were all scrambled. The entire planet seemed to be alive, its energy pulsing in every direction. "What is happening?" Lieutenant Sarah yelled as she pulled herself upright, her voice trembling with disbelief. The answer came quickly, too quickly. A piercing, high-pitched sound rang through the air, followed by the unmistakable hum of energy. It wasn't coming from the ground this time. No, this sound was coming from the sky. Elias looked up just as several glowing shapes appeared in the atmosphere, descending rapidly toward them. The ships, if they could even be called that, weren't like anything the humans had ever seen. They were sleek, almost organic in shape, and radiated with the same energy that had been humming beneath the surface of the alien colony. Before they could even react, the first blast struck. The ships unleashed beams of energy, striking the ground with deadly precision. The humans had no time to prepare. The blast hit their perimeter, sending a shockwave of heat and light that knocked Elias off his feet. The explosion left a crater in the earth where they had once stood, and the sound of the blast echoed in Elias's ears like the ringing of a distant bell. "Get to cover," Elias shouted, scrambling to his feet and pulling Sarah toward a nearby rocky outcrop. The humans had no weapons capable of countering the alien ships. Their technology was far too advanced, and the aliens had clearly made the decision to show their true power in full force. From the corner of his eye, Elias saw the alien leader. She stood at the top of a high ridge, watching the devastation unfold with a cold, impassive expression, as if everything had gone according to plan. "They were waiting for this moment," Elias muttered, his voice filled with a mix of awe and fear. They weren't hiding. They were preparing. As the ships continued to hover above, unleashing wave after wave of energy, Elias and his team did their best to stay out of the line of fire. The ground around them trembled with each strike, and their world had become a battlefield. But this wasn't a battle they were equipped to fight. Through the chaos, Elias saw a new terrifying sight. The alien leader raised one hand, and the beams of energy from the ships paused midair. For a moment, everything was still, so still that it felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, with a single motion, she gestured toward the humans. Suddenly, the ships changed course, veering toward the humans' position. The blasts grew more concentrated, and the earth began to crack under the intensity of the fire. Elias could hear the crackle of energy in the air as the beams neared. They had been given a warning, but it had become clear now. The aliens were showing their strength, not just to intimidate, but to demonstrate the consequences of underestimating them. With every pulse of energy, the humans felt more powerless. This wasn't a simple attack. It was a message. The aliens were not simply defending themselves. They were asserting their authority, showing the humans what they had been hiding all along. As Elias ducked behind cover, watching the sky fill with alien ships and energy blasts, he understood the truth. The aliens were not just defending their home. They were reminding the humans who was truly in control. The power they had once hidden had now been unleashed, and there was no turning back. "What do we do now?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper, filled with dread. Elias didn't have an answer. All he could do was watch as the alien leader raised her hand again, signaling the ships to stop. The energy blasts ceased, leaving the humans shaken and battered, surrounded by the devastation that had been wrought. The leader's voice echoed over the destruction. "We are not weak," she called out, her voice carrying through the silence. "We were waiting. Now you see what we are capable of. The choice is yours. Live with us in peace, or face the full extent of our power." The message was clear. The aliens had been holding back, but now they were ready. Ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy, and ready to remind the humans that they were not the ones who held the power here. The humans' desperate struggle. The silence after the aliens' demonstration of power was deafening. Captain Elias, his body bruised and battered from the blast, lay on the cold ground, trying to make sense of the chaos that had unfolded. The air still crackled with residual energy from the alien ships, and the wreckage of their camp and equipment lay scattered across the battlefield. The humans had no idea what had just hit them. It was as if the aliens had unleashed a fury they hadn't seen in centuries, reminding the humans of their terrifying capabilities. "Captain, are you okay?" Lieutenant Sarah's voice cut through the haze, her hand on Elias's shoulder as she helped him to his feet. He winced from the pain but pushed it aside. "We're alive," Elias muttered, scanning the destruction around him. His team was in no better shape. They had barely survived the assault, and now they were vulnerable. They had underestimated the aliens, and now they would pay the price. "We need to regroup, get to the transport ships, and retreat," Sarah suggested urgently. "We can't win this fight." Elias nodded, his mind racing. His original mission had been to observe and learn, to explore and gather intelligence on this alien race. But now, that mission had taken a terrifying turn. The aliens weren't just a new species to study. They were a powerful ancient force, and they had just shown the humans what they were capable of. "No," Elias said, shaking his head. "We can't just run. We need to understand why they're doing this. Why now? What do they want?" Before Sarah could respond, a chilling voice echoed from above, clear as day despite the chaos. "Your time to flee is over." Elias's eyes shot up. The alien leader stood high on a ridge, her dark eyes fixed on them. She was calm, unfazed by the destruction she had just wrought, as though it was all part of a plan. She raised one hand, and with a simple flick of her wrist, the energy from the ships dissipated, as if they were nothing more than a tool at her command. Elias's heart pounded in his chest. The aliens were showing no mercy. They were in control, and the humans had only just begun to understand the scale of the threat they posed. "You don't understand," the leader continued, her voice calm and steady. "We are not interested in conquest. We seek no war. But we will not allow others to threaten our existence." Elias felt a surge of frustration rise within him. "You destroyed everything we've worked for," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "You attacked us without warning. Why? Why show us this power?" The alien leader's gaze softened, though her expression remained impassive. "You came here thinking you could conquer. You came thinking we were weak, that we could be controlled. You misjudged us. And now you must decide. Will you fight for your survival, or will you accept the peace we offer?" Her words hit Elias like a cold wave. The aliens weren't fighting to destroy. They weren't trying to conquer. They had been waiting, watching the humans, and testing them. The humans had failed the test. "You've shown us your strength," Elias said, standing tall despite the pain. "But we're not going down without a fight. We didn't come here to surrender." The alien leader's eyes flickered with something Elias couldn't read. "You still don't understand. We don't want your surrender. We want your understanding." Elias narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" The leader's lips curled into a faint smile. "You will learn in time. The choice is yours. Fight and face your extinction, or walk away and find a new path together. But know this, we are not the ones you need to fear. It is the galaxy that awaits us." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Elias and his team with the weight of her words hanging in the air. The humans stood in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. The aliens were not their enemies. At least they didn't seem to be. Elias's mind raced. The choice was theirs to make now. But the question was, how could they possibly stand a chance against an enemy who had shown them their devastating power? "Captain, we can't stay here," Sarah said urgently. "We need to retreat, regroup, and figure out how to deal with this. We're outmatched." Elias looked back at the destruction, his heart heavy with doubt. Sarah was right. They were outmatched, and retreating might be their only option. But Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the answer wasn't in fleeing. There had to be a way to understand the aliens, to prevent a larger conflict. "We're not leaving yet," Elias said, determination hardening his voice. "We need to understand them. We need to find out what they want. And we need to convince them that we can work together." His words hung in the air, but there was no doubt in his mind now. The humans were facing a force far beyond anything they had encountered before. But if they could find a way to communicate, to understand the true nature of the aliens, maybe, just maybe, they could avoid total destruction. The battle wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The final revelation. The days following the attack were filled with uncertainty and tension. Captain Elias and his team, battered and bruised, took shelter in a nearby cave, away from the wreckage of their camp. The once bustling human settlement now lay in ruins, a haunting reminder of the aliens' terrifying power. Yet Elias knew that the fight wasn't over, not in the way they thought. His mind kept returning to the leader's words, "We are not the ones you need to fear. It is the galaxy that awaits us." Elias couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper going on, something far beyond a simple confrontation. The aliens didn't want to destroy the humans. They didn't want war. But they had shown their power, a power that could wipe out entire fleets, and they had given the humans a choice: understand them or face extinction. He couldn't afford to ignore it any longer. Elias called a meeting with his team, huddled around a small, flickering fire in the cave. "We need to get answers," he said, his voice steady but filled with determination. The leader said, "We don't understand." "She's right. We're still treating this like a battle. But I think the true fight is about understanding their perspective. They have shown us their power because they want us to see that they are not weak, but also not looking for conflict. They're waiting for something." Lieutenant Sarah leaned forward, her face etched with exhaustion. "But why would they want peace with us if they're capable of such destruction? Why didn't they just destroy us when they had the chance?" Elias stared into the fire, trying to make sense of it all. "I think they've seen the cycle of destruction in the galaxy, the wars, the suffering caused by endless conflict. Maybe they want to stop that. Maybe they're trying to avoid the same mistakes they made long ago. They're not interested in more conquest. They've been through that before. But their power, their history, it's too much to ignore. If they wanted to, they could obliterate entire civilizations without a second thought. But they're giving us a choice. The real question is, what kind of choice are we willing to make?" Just as Sarah was about to respond, a low, rumbling sound echoed through the cave. It was the same strange hum that had accompanied the alien ships before. The walls vibrated slightly, and a strange light began to filter in from the entrance. Elias and Sarah exchanged worried glances before rushing outside to see what was happening. There, standing against the backdrop of a burning sunset, were several alien figures. At the center stood the leader once again, her dark eyes locked onto Elias's. But this time, there was something different in her expression, something that wasn't cold or distant, but thoughtful. "You have come to understand, Captain Elias," she said softly, her voice carrying over the stillness. "You have asked the right questions. Now, you will know the truth." Elias's heart pounded. What truth? The leader raised her hand, and before the humans could react, the ground beneath their feet began to shift. The rock at their feet cracked open, revealing a hidden structure deep beneath the surface. The light intensified, revealing intricate carvings and glowing symbols, alien technology far beyond anything the humans had encountered. It was like the planet itself was awakening. "We are not the last of our kind," the leader continued, her eyes filled with a strange sadness. "We are the descendants of an ancient race that once ruled the galaxy. But in our pursuit of power, we destroyed everything: worlds, species, lives, until there was nothing left. And so we chose to hide. We chose isolation, to allow the galaxy to heal, and to never repeat the mistakes of the past." Elias was stunned. You weren't just hiding your power. You were hiding from it. The leader nodded slowly. Yes, our empire was vast, and our strength was unmatched. But we saw the suffering we caused, and we made a vow to never let that happen again. We chose to withdraw, to retreat to this planet, where we could be forgotten. But the universe has changed. New powers have risen, and the cycle of war is starting again. The galaxy will soon face a choice, whether it will embrace peace or descend into the same chaos we once unleashed. Elias's mind raced as he absorbed her words. And you're giving us a choice. What happens if we choose wrong? The leader's expression hardened. If you choose wrong, the galaxy will be consumed by war once more, and we will not allow that to happen again. We will stop it, no matter the cost. The weight of her words hung in the air like a storm ready to break. The aliens weren't just warning the humans, they were warning the entire galaxy. They had lived through the destruction of an empire, and they wouldn't let history repeat itself. They were offering a way out, a chance to avoid the path of destruction. You have the power to change things, the leader said, her eyes locking with Elias's. You and all who come after you. We can help guide the galaxy to peace, but only if we work together. Elias stood in silence, the enormity of the situation sinking in. He had come to this planet expecting a conflict, expecting to fight for survival. But now, he realized that the true battle was not about strength, but about choosing the right path. The aliens had given humanity a chance to avoid the mistakes of the past. The real question now was whether they, and the rest of the galaxy, would rise to the challenge. Elias looked out over the horizon, the setting sun casting a fiery glow across the landscape. The choice lay before them, and the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. The fight wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning.